What's up guys, Reed here. Today I wanted to do a video on 5 of the common mistakes in DeFi and hopefully to help you avoid making those similar mistakes. I've made some of them, my clients have made some of them. They are avoidable, so stick around. I'll give you 5 and then I may even throw a sneaky little 6th one in at the end as a bit of a bonus. Number 1 is not paying attention to security. You may have heard some horror stories about people getting their wallets drained or scams in crypto and DeFi. The reality is that most of those unfortunate incidences are due to user error. So you can essentially avoid most of those, negative outcomes by using a trustworthy hot wallet. I personally use Rabby, some of my clients like to use MetaMask, but it's essential that you link that hot wallet to a cold storage device. I use Trezor, and it's very, very simple to link your cold storage device to your hot wallet, and it mitigates most of the potential for wallet drainer attacks, which is where you can click on a phishing link or a scam link. They do get access to your funds. But if you have to authorize those transactions with a physical cold storage device, they can't really get their grubby little mitts on it. So make sure you are doing that. And part B to that is when you're recording your seed phrase, don't ever store it digitally. That includes taking photos of it. I know of a guy who unfortunately took a photo of his seed phrase, stored it on his Google Drive. A scammer called him and pretended he was from Google, which no one from Google is calling you, by the way. But he fell for it, gave him access to his Google Drive. The guy knew exactly what he was looking for. 10 minutes later, this guy lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. All of that would have been avoidable if he had a cold storage device linked to his hot wallet and if he didn't store his seed phrase digitally. I personally like to use a metal seed phrase card. You can get them from Amazon, they're super cheap. Store them safely, don't tell people where you've stored them, and just never ever store it digitally. Number 2 is being fearful of lend and borrow platforms. Now, the way that concentrated liquidity works, which is where we do most of our business in DeFi, is your exposure or the upwards price trajectory is limited. So when one asset outperforms and you go out of range, you've lost exposure to the best performing asset and you retain exposure to the underperforming asset. So how can we get around that? What I personally like to do, and none of this is financial advice, but I like to loan my blue chip assets, borrow against those blue chip assets, and put borrowed capital into DeFi for me to earn a passive income. So let's just use Bitcoin for an example. If you put Coinbase Bitcoin on a protocol called Morpho or Moonwell, borrow potentially 30% against that, I feel that that's a relatively safe LTV. Take that 30% and deploy that into concentrated liquidity pools, which means you get to retain exposure to all of your Bitcoin. Of course, you do have to pay back the loan, but you can pay that loan back with the yield that you're generating or by waiting for Bitcoin to increase significantly in value and then selling just a small portion of your Bitcoin to pay back that loan, which essentially means you've created free money, baby. So don't be fearful of lend and borrow platforms. They were a significant needle mover in my portfolio's performance, and I was probably a little bit too fearful of them earlier on in my DeFi journey. So number 2, don't be afraid of lend and borrow platforms. Use them responsibly. Let me know if you would like a guided video of how I use those personally. Number 3, and this is a key one, stop chasing yield, you greedy little goblins. Chasing yield is a quick way to get wrecked. And yes, we've all seen that you can earn 1,000% APR in some positions. I'm not exaggerating, you really can. However, the most important thing has to come down to the underlying assets. If you're chasing yield, highly risky positions with incredibly volatile underlying assets, yes, the price moves up quickly, but it tends to move down quicker and stay down for longer. So don't chase yield by deploying liquidity into pools with risky or low market cap or incredibly volatile underlying assets. Another way that I see people chasing yield is by setting ranges that are far too narrow. By setting narrow ranges, you're constantly going to be rebalancing, you're going to be finalizing or locking in some of that impermanent loss, and it becomes very difficult to come out ahead. Yes, you're earning a lot of fees, but you're locking in a lot of loss. It's not a good way to be net positive overall. So stop chasing yield. It's not a good idea. Number 4, less is more. It rhymes, so it has to be true. What I mean by less is more is you don't need 15 different positions in DeFi. I currently have 2 positions, and I've had those same 2 positions for months now. They're performing fantastically well. I don't need to manage them. I check them every couple of days, and they're doing exactly what I need them to do. By adding too many different positions, A, you're creating a bit of a headache for yourself in terms of tracking, but B, you have to be making so many more decisions. There's a lot more room for user error. I just find that the more positions you have, the more time you have to be spending managing those positions, but the less your performance tends to be, or the worse your performance tends to be. So less is more. You don't have to only have 2 positions, but you definitely need to limit the amount of positions you have, particularly early on in your journey. So number 4, less is more. The 5th mistake that I see people making is not being consistent with their tracking. You don't need to spend hours each day tracking your positions. You don't need to track every single little element of data, but you do need to track the key metrics. For me, the key metrics are obviously capital invested, the fees that I've earned or generated, and the current value of my capital in a pool, which gives me enough information to make the correct decision at that time. Now, sometimes I do exit a position if it's in a loss, if my yield has outpaced that capital depreciation. But without tracking that position carefully and consistently, I don't know that. So make sure you're tracking consistently. It doesn't take a long time. There are tools that we can leverage to make that job easier, but you must be consistent with your tracking. Now, I did promise a 6th little mistake that I see people making, and this may be contentious, but don't quit your day job too early. This sun is doing a lot. I can't wait to get in that water. Don't quit your day job too early. It's very easy to get an inflated sense of performance after 2 or 3 fantastic weeks in crypto and DeFi, but the market is volatile. It ebbs and it flows, it pumps and it dumps. Don't go into your office and tell your boss to get stuffed and stride out of there feeling like a hero too early. Yes, you absolutely can leave your full-time job through crypto and DeFi. I've managed to do so. Many of my clients have managed to do so. But there's a lot of things we need to check off first before that's realistic and before that's sustainable. So number 1, don't ignore crucial security measures. Number 2, stop being fearful of lend and borrow positions. Number 3, stop chasing that yield, you greedy little goblins. Number 4, less is more. Number 5, make sure you're consistent with your tracking. And number 6, make sure you have all of your ducks in a row before you tell your boss to get stuffed and quit your job. So if one of your goals is to retire from work and you want to spend the rest of your days roaming around, checking out amazing places like this, swimming, surfing, connecting with family, let us know, like and subscribe, and we'll be releasing plenty more content on how to structure a sustainable DeFi portfolio that meets your needs and helps you achieve that goal. Thanks everyone. See you next time.